like say for instance, when you do a classes and you have a 5 o'clock, a 6 o'clock, a 7 o'clock, and 8 o'clock, that next hour you're on again, and it's a whole new cycle of people, and it's like, oh, here's another six right in your face. It's like throwing up six people right at you, which can get overwhelming, or it just gets hectic. It's like, okay, I have to get six people ready within 5 minutes because they're going to start getting complacent. This way, two people showed up at 6. I get them situated, get them set up. Another two people roll in about 15 minutes later. 4 people show up, and I already got people kind of organized, situated. I already have things ready to go. It's a lot easier on the trainer's end also because, you're not getting that influx constantly every hour. Sometimes I get off early. Like, sometimes I'll get off if I have a 6 to 10 open. I might get done at 9:30 because all the people that are signed up, they got in and they're done. So then I have an extra hour to whatever I want to do. So it allows me to have more flexibility in my schedule because I could get off early, or I don't have that constant just bombardment of people every hour. Here's 5, here's 5, here's 5, here's 5, and then you have to just be on point. And when you come in and you see my gym, I have some impressive people in here. I have this 65-year-old lady who could press a 32 kilo with one arm. I have another 65-year-old lady who could deadlift 92 kilos. I have, like 70-year-olds that are doing 100 swings in a session with squats and rows and get-ups. And, I'd probably say a third of my members are over 65, and they're all moving great. They're pretty impressive. I have an 80-year-old lady who could deadlift 56 kilos. So people are working hard when they're coming into the gym.
Why? This is interesting then. Do you target, I don't know how your marketing works or anything like that, but do you target people like that, or do they just naturally, or is it because everyone started when they were 25 and they're now that age because you've been doing it?
Partly that. It's, I've had people for like 10 plus years that they have entered their 70s. I started training them. Like I have this one lady, her name's Margie. I started training her at 48. She's now 62. Yeah. So I have literally trained her in her 40s, 50s, and now 60s, and what's really interesting, to answer your question, I don't do any marketing, besides I'm in a networking group where we meet up twice a month. And we kind of network, business professionals network to each other. But other than that, I don't do any, it's all word of mouth. But people just they just hear about me. A lot of people are scared in my area of going to a trainer because the first thing they want to say is, oh, I don't want to get hurt, or, oh, I need to train. I need to get ready to go see a trainer because they think they're going to get their ass obliterated and they have to crawl out of the gym. That's the persona over here of what trainers are. So I get a lot of people that, want to exercise, don't know how to do it, or have a lot of injuries. Like I train people with like knee replacements, hip replacements, spinal fusions, vertigo. And it's kind of just happened. They've been referred, hey, you got to go see this guy. If you have a hip replacement, he'll help you get back to being stronger, So that's just kind of the clientele that comes. And I only turn down people who aren't willing to be strong mentally, like as far as, how should I say it? Like they have to adopt the principle of what strong is. Strong is not a weight. Strong is an attitude. And I don't want to hear no whimpering in my gym, like, oh, it's too heavy, which it's not going to be because I modify things. But, I don't want you to go like, especially with my lady clients, in the beginning, they want to touch the lightweight. They jokingly say, oh, let me just grab this light pink one over here. And I'm like, yeah, don't put yourself down jokingly even, like you should want to approach a heavier weight, obviously safely, but over here in the, the being weak is kind of more an accepted thing society wise now, it's like, oh, I don't want to do too much when they say that as like a cushion because they're afraid to get hurt, but
Mm.
they're weak because, or they're how should I say it? It's like they're at a state of weakness where anything can hurt if they do it wrong, or you know what I mean? So
I know exactly what you mean. I say that a lot when people. I've got a couple of examples from the last few weeks actually when people are, and it's not through weakness because it's guys who are in, but and I'm touching wood here. People rarely get injured when they're training with me,
yeah.
but when they're playing cricket, or like one guy who texted me last night, one of my online clients who keeps sheep on his property, and he was chasing one of them around last night to try and get it back in the barn, and his foot went in a hole and he's tore his hamstring chasing a sheep. No, but you know what I mean. But he swings around kettlebells and put above his head and that, nothing, and that doesn't injure him. So it's like, it's. I know what you mean, but so I say it a lot when people say like, you know, kettlebells hurt your back and all that. It's like, well, try sitting on the sofa for 30 years.
Yeah.
That's gonna hurt your back, you know. And it's not
Yeah,
usually
definitely.
the lifting the weight that's the problem. It's usually the fact that you're not strong enough to. Your body's not prepared.
Yeah, it's like the mindset of what exercise is really supposed to give you. You know, it's like
Yeah,
people see the weights and they think that it's going to hurt them exercising when it's the opposite. And that's kind of the mindset is like, no, we're in here to get better. The weight is arbitrary. It doesn't matter about the weight. We're focusing on quality of movement. Once the movement is at a proper quality, all strength training is you just add a heavier anchor to the proper movement. That's all it is. So like a hinge. Okay, let me see you do a bodyweight hinge without any weight. That looks pretty good. Let's add a light anchor to that. Okay, cool. There's a deficiency in your deadlift once you get too low. So what I do is a good coaching cue. If you have someone with a deadlift that they start rounding their back or they have a dysfunction to it if they get too low, is just put a stool up high enough where their deadlift is still in proper technique, and then have them deadlift and pick up the weight from the stool. Once they get that proper technique, lower the stool a little bit, lower the stool until they end up doing it on the ground. And now all of a sudden their nervous system has a proper pattern of proper technique from the ground. And now you can start adding a heavier anchor at that point. That's how I got a 70-plus-year-old lady. She couldn't touch her knees without a hinge, or like she couldn't hinge touching her knees. She always rounded with her shoulders. So I brought a stool all the way up to like mid thigh and just had her hinge until it was only like, you know, you can't see it on TV if no one's watching, but it was just very minimal hinge, like a minute movement. But she got the concept of moving her hips, touched the kettlebell. Then I started bringing the stool, and she didn't even pick up the kettlebell yet until the kettlebell was on the ground. Just had her touch it, stand up, touch it. Then her hinge got deeper until she was able to touch the kettlebell on the ground. Then I had her pick it up. You know, it's a very effective way to get people to, you know, get a proper deadlift, is just bring the ground to them and then start working on the pattern on the way down.
that's brilliant because that goes with. I mean, I say this quote all the time. I used it on the Adam Meekins one the other week, but it's what when Paul McElroy says strength isn't built, it's granted by your central nervous system. Now, your average person might not even know what that means, but it's just building confidence within the movement, which is exactly what you've just said, isn't it? So this lady might think, well, I can't do that. And it's like, okay, well, let's just work on it and tell your central nervous system that you can do it over time. And it's honestly, if people could get that concept, like it would be brilliant, because then anybody can do anything, can't they? With like, you know, it just opens up a whole new world to a lot of people.
Brett Jones has a great analogy, and I'm a big analogy guy. But have you ever had one of those car alarms that is so sensitive, even if you like flick it with your finger, the car alarm would just go off, or your neighbor's car, you know, the kid's ball hits it and it goes off. It's just overly sensitive, you know? That's how a lot of people are in their, especially beginning into strength training. They're overly sensitive to like, oh, what's that? Oh, you know, and they kind of need to tone down the sensitivity of their car alarm in order to trust the movement. And that just takes you as an instructor to calm down that individual. I'm not saying like calm down, but you know, like calm down Yeah, don't yell at them. Only if they deserve it.